Welcome to Construct Tech TV, and I'm Peggy Smedley. Joseph McCarty came west looking for a new home. When he reached the Fox Valley, he built a campfire in April of 1834 on what is now the site of downtown Aurora, Illinois. McCarty thought this would be a great location for a new community, and he told his brother. The settlement was originally named McCarty Mills for the brothers' grist mill and sawmill. Later, in 1837, when the post office was established, it became Aurora, which is also known as the Goddess of the Dawn. Interestingly enough, the city was later one of the first to use electric lights for publicly lighting the entire city, and thus it also received the nickname the City of Lights. Today, the city has grown to a population of almost 200,000, according to the 2010 census, and it is now the second largest city in the state. It is unique in that the city is within 4 different counties: DuPage, Kane, Kendall, and Will. It has also set a goal to make it a regional technology hub, and it is driving a number of smart city efforts, which we'll look at throughout this entire episode. Many of the city leaders are identifying how technology can help both with sustainability and even resiliency. The future is very bright for the City of Lights, and that's a city connected Aurora. Today we are at the City Hall in Aurora, Illinois, and I am with Richard Irvin, and you were kind of sworn in as the 59th mayor, is that correct?
I was the 59th mayor, City of Aurora, in 180 years. Exactly.
That is exciting. So I'm excited to be here with you.
I've been in office about a year and a half.
That is wonderful. I'm excited to be with you. So we're going to talk about that today. And also I'm here with Michael Pegues. Michael, you are the CIO of the City of Aurora as well, correct?
That is correct.
So we're going to have a great conversation. We're going to talk about how you gentlemen are making Aurora another tech hub, correct? That's exciting times.
We're calling it a smart city.
Smart city. Well, there are a lot of smart cities, but not as much as what you guys are doing. So let's talk about that. What are some of the goals that you have, Mayor, for really trying to get this a tech hub? Because that's exciting for a city like Aurora right now.
You know, we're in a digital age now, and it's only going to get more and more technical and digital, you know, as we progress as a society. Yeah, I remember times, you know, years ago where you'd be excited if you had a pager. You know, now you're walking around.
Now you're dating yourself,
right?
Right.
You're not exactly right. Now, you know, you walk around with a PC in your pocket, you know, and everybody has one we call a phone. So, you know, what we're looking for is to have more accessibility, you know, for our IT, you know, and just, you know, a whole lot more access for our citizens.
So talk about that, getting your citizens and everything like that, because we want to talk about how you get your citizens and your taxpayers and everyone to actually get involved in that, because it's not easy for them, ones, to really get behind it, for two, to also want to pay for that. So I guess I want to talk about that first, but I guess from your perspective, Michael, how are you actually going to implement a strategy like this?
Right, so as you can hear, I mean, the mayor has a very robust vision in terms of making the City of Aurora a regional leader in the region, right? As I say, and, you know, just kind of
in the whole state.
For the whole state, exactly. So you can see the ambition right there.
That's complicated right there. You're not something small here.
So, you know, I'm basically trying to take the mayor's vision and kind of define what that mission looks like, right? And what we're going to do is take that concept to implementation, to drive that smart cities, or actually I'm kind of trying to recoin it as smart communities, right? Because a smart city, it's nothing. As soon as we go across the border or the city boundaries, we've gone into another city, but that whole concept shouldn't stop there. It should be more regional, right? The first step, what we're going to do is look at putting together the City of Aurora's technology plan. It's a strategic plan that outlines our roadmap or the blueprint for the next 3 to 5 years, right? That takes on the mayor's vision. It takes on the assessment of our landscape and where we're at today, the strategy behind that, right? And how we're going to implement that and add value to the City of Aurora and the community as a whole.
Talk about that, Mayor, your vision behind this, because everybody thinks a tech hub when they think about it, they think of things that are going to be in Silicon Valley. They think of Chicago. They don't think of Aurora. Not to pick on poor Aurora, but you have to think big and have a big vision to get innovators to want to come to Aurora. So your vision has to be big if you want it to be a tech hub and a smart city.
That is right. And, not only, and I said earlier that, we're looking to make sure that we had accessibility for our citizens and, our surrounding communities, because we're the second largest city in the state of Illinois. So we have suburbs. So we want these suburbs to also be connected to the city. It helps us grow. And it's accessibility and connectivity. And the way we do that is to capitalize on our assets. We have 100 square miles of a fiber optic network, right here in Aurora Underground, one of the biggest fiber optic networks, in the state and, in the region outside of the state. And we want to capitalize on that by attracting tech companies and having a tech corridor where we just focus on taking our technology to the next level.
So when you look at this, taking that corridor and getting those companies in, how will you be able to then get companies to afford and pay for this? Because right now you're going to have to ding these citizens. You're going to have to ding the taxpayer, so to speak. How will you get them to say, we want to do that? Because fiber optic is great. It gets them those speeds and feeds, as I always like to say, connectivity.
Absolutely.
Because we're talking about we're going to have a world that's autonomous. Everybody's going to be connected. You want connected street lights. You want to be able to process invoices or things like this. When
autonomous
you have
cars at some point in the future.
Exactly.
Driving you around without a
permits, right?
Exactly.
All of those things you're talking about.
Access.
But someone's going to have to pay for these things, and you have to get citizens behind that, because eventually you want a safe community and a quick, accessible community. But everything costs.
It is, and and I look at it as an investment. And in some point in the future, in the near future, when we have this connectivity and the accessibility, it's a return on our investment. It just makes the city a better city, more capable of providing services to our citizens, whether it be having better communication to pick up your garbage, or to provide your water, pay your water bill, or or even an easier way to pay your taxes. It's all about the opportunity to grow and just make things more accessible and easier, more user-friendly for our citizens.
Michael, do you see yourselves doing this instantly, or is it a process that's going to take multiple years to implement to achieve the goals from a CIO's perspective?
Absolutely. And if we go back to what I said about that strategic plan and that blueprint, that's over 3 to 5 years when we can start actualizing some of those fruits from our labor. But going back to what the mayor said from an IT perspective, like on the ground, when we talk about one of the things that I see coming from the private sector is we could defer those costs by looking at different type of funding models, right? So we could look at shared services that we do today, right? So other municipalities using our services and us collecting revenue on that to basically go back and lower the cost on our constituents here, right?
Let me give you an example of that, one that I've been talking to you about for the last couple of months. And, Michael had the idea to have kiosks, throughout the city, which, pretty much are huge cell phones, iPhones, or, smartphones that will provide information to our citizens. For example, let's say we have a kiosk right down here in our Water Street Mall. A citizen could be walking by, walk up to this kiosk, and just push an icon, say, what's the best restaurant to go to? What's the best theater to go to? When's the next show? These are the things that create the access that make a city, make it more available for people who want to come be a part of the community.
Getting the citizens involved, making them
Absolutely.
feel a part of it is going to get them to say, wow, I'm not only getting a service, but I feel like I'm a part of a community.
Exactly
is what
right.
you're bringing them all a part of this.
Exactly right. And that's just one example. I'm sure Michael has.
Yeah, and we have many more. We have many more. I would say one of my primary tactics is going to be through public-private partnership, right? Bringing in private industry to help us to deploy different solutions and services that they may have an interest in as well, and giving back to the community and getting involved, right? We're in conversation with various companies from Google to Amazon, and the list goes on, right? Trying to find those commonalities to see where we can partner over a period of time. And again, it's about a strategic partnership, right?
Yeah.
It's not about us paying for a service and them going away. It's about them being vested in our community and being able to give back.
And those the P3s, public-private partnership, going back to what Michael was just talking about. Let's talk about the kiosk for a second. For example, you said, how do you pay for this type of technology? Well, Michael has set it up with the kiosk that we'll have. It'll have advertisement from different companies, tech companies, different restaurants. So if someone goes on this kiosk and says, what's the best restaurant? This restaurant is advertised and paid for that advertisement. So, over a certain period of time that this is advertisement pays for the kiosk and there's no cost. It's cost neutral. There's no cost to the citizen.
And you look at that because I was going to ask you, and I was going to say you should conduct the interview because you threw the question out for me on the public-private partnerships, because that's really what you have to do, because as a government entity, it's hard to get the funds you need.
Absolutely.
But in order to grow as a tech hub, you've got to have public-private partnerships. You've got to have these big tech companies involved to see the benefits. That's where the innovation comes.
Exactly right.
And are you seeing that right now, that they see as a community like Aurora has a lot to offer them now?
Absolutely. Matter of fact, we just had a huge tech company relocate from one of the other suburbs in Illinois to Aurora to capitalize on our technology that we have here, on our fiber optic network, on this tech corridor that we have. A huge company that's been.
We have a lot of space.
We have a whole lot of space, right? Yeah, second largest city in the state. So, we're taking it to the next level.
What about sustainability? I mean, that's a huge one that you have to think about. Are these the things that you are also looking, because that's where, this new generation we have, millennials, Generation Y, think about giving back. They understand that we're going to have a shortage of water. We have a shortage of resources. Are you looking at these as a part of that? It's not just about what we have today, but it's about what we can give future generations, and that's how they're thinking. Is this a part of your strategic plan as you think 3, 5, 10 years out?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I think I'm going to go ahead, because a lot of times people ask the question, what defines a smart city, right? So from my perspective, it's a municipality being able to actually deliver first-class services to their citizens, right? And that consists of the people, and we're talking employees and constituents. We're talking about the products and services, whatever those services the city may provide to our constituents in terms of water billing, in terms of waste management, in terms of making it a eco-friendly environment, right? Lowering emissions, smart infrastructure, right? And then we also talk about the actual partners. Who are those strategic partners that we're going to be partnering with over a period of time? Not this year, but I'm like 5 to 10 years out, right? And then we also want to look at how we actually operate internally and how we engage with our citizens in terms of the processes. We don't want to hit them just once a year. We want to stay involved with them on a quarterly basis, on a very routine basis, to let them understand that, hey, these are the activities that are going on in the city. What's your thoughts? What's your feedback? Getting them involved, right? So it's a strategy, but we need to map it out in terms of a blueprint and keep it on point as we move forward throughout that strategic blueprint.
We also have a generation right now that doesn't want to go to school, right? That they don't. We now have to work with, some do, some don't. I'm not saying that they all don't, so we probably shouldn't say a generation, but we have a shortage, a labor shortage, maybe is the way I should word it, that we have to think about. What do you think your community can do to help with that? Because we have a construction industry right now that is booming, but they can't find the trades that they need. We have less than 9% of women in construction. Do you see there's an opportunity for your tech hub that you're doing, your smart city, to be able to help that, because you have such a booming community, to say, look, there's a lot that you think as a community that you can help as a thriving entity there?
Absolutely, absolutely. Matter of fact, when you say that not many kids want to go to the traditional route of education where you go to college for 4 years and then maybe grad school, you're absolutely right. So what we have to do is kind of change gears and provide other types of education. And technical education is one, where maybe you get a certificate after high school, you're done, you go out and you get to become certified to work on computers or to work in the tech industry. And I think that's one of the things that we talked about when I talked about when I was elected over this last year. That we've got to find a way to re-educate our youth to give them opportunities that they didn't have in the past. And matter of fact, I've created what's called the Education Commission here in Aurora, which brings their best and our brightest. We have 5 school districts that touch Aurora, 3 that sit in the city limits, and actually 6, and then 3 others that bus outside of the school. So we brought the leadership in all these school districts together to talk about how we provide the appropriate education for our youth in the future, and what we're going to focus on: STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, to make sure that they're prepared for this technological future.
What do you see?
Recognizing that they're not going to go to college in the same
They're
traditional
not,
way
right?
that they have in the past.
And the universities right now understand that too.
Absolutely.
They have to think differently because
Exactly
it's
right.
just, there's such great opportunities.
Different age, right?
It's
Exactly
a different
right.
age, right? And there is. You get that in the cab of a construction machine right now. It's like running a gaming system,
Exactly
but it's very
right, right,
sophisticated
right.
in its own way.
And,
Yes.
and that's a very good point, because when this topic comes up, like human capital, right? Now, just think, and I'm going to use my own kind of personal example here, because I have 3 kids, right? So there's the twins are 6, and my son is 8, right? My son has been using an iPad since he was 2 years old. Right?
Wow.
So you have to start thinking about the mentality. By the time the kids get in elementary school, they already know how to use technology.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So why don't we capitalize on that, right? Because when these kids get out of high school, when they go through junior, middle school, and high school, and then they get out, they're already prepared for the workforce, right? So they can come into a company, Fortune 100 company, and pretty much do network security. They can do design thinking. They can do software development, right? So going to college, to be quite honest, it's almost becoming a bit obsolete, in the sense,
In the traditional sense, absolutely, traditional sense of college.
And one of the things is, it's like, if you find the right company through workforce training or co-op training in high school, you can be placed into a company immediately after high school. And then the training that those companies can provide for you, whether it's Cisco training, it's CompTIA training, or even going back to school to get an undergrad or your master's degree. You need to kind of think about a different model in terms of, how you're going to fund, and how you make yourself valuable to that entity where they want to invest in you, right?
I have a son that's 16 that, is going to be a junior in high school. And, I watch him play these video games and, be on the computer and do these things that, it's almost like a different language.
It is a different language.
Right, that I don't understand. And just as you pointed out, you get in a cab of, a major, say heavy machinery now, and you have all this, you have all this digital, these digital operations, which I may get in and look and say, I have no idea how it works with. My son may get in and say, I've been playing these video games my whole life, so I can make
They know
work.
exactly operating that joystick and knows exactly what to do.
Exactly right, and perspective and everything. So we have to focus on that, as Michael said, and capitalize on what this language that they know, and teach them how to use that language, in jobs.
And looking at that and seeing that as a smart city right now, and looking at parking structures, do you see what we have as we talk urbanization and rural communities? It's changing. What we've had is these giant parking structures that we've had, the way our communities. Do you see that your city that you have is going to be different in the way you communicate now with your citizens because of that? Because when you look at your plan now, you say how we create the city, we understand that. So what we see Aurora going to be is going to be different than what everybody's ever seen as a big Chicago, as a big LA.
Absolutely.
And that's what you see your smart city of the future?
It's pedestrian friendly. We want people to feel comfortable, walking in our downtown, walking throughout our city. We want to create a pedestrian friendly environment. That doesn't always mean huge structures, huge skyscrapers, huge parking decks. It's funny you should bring up parking. Matter of fact, Michael and I, a couple months ago, were talking about how, we can best, have people find parking locations here in the city and making it a smart city. We've talked about using technology and an app to let people know where are parking spaces available for them. You come into the city, you pull an app, where can I park? And this app tells you exactly where parking space is available. So you don't have to go look for a big parking structure or drive around for blocks and blocks. You can know exactly how to go in. And that's that connectivity that, that we get, and accessibility that I talk about, that what makes a city a smart city.
Looking at it now for what you will have with Aurora, how will you make Aurora communicate with the cities around it? How will you partner now with other cities to make yourselves not just an island in and of itself, but a city connected to other cities?
And I'll have Mike follow up on this, but I think that's what really puts Aurora on the map, when we become this regional and state leader, and other cities are looking to us, for the answers, and to say, how do you create this blueprint of success? And Mike's been setting a strong foundation for that.
Yeah. And just to caveat again, Aurora sits within 4 counties, right? So we are already partnered with those with those IT leaders in those 4 counties, right? We've already partnered with the city of Chicago. They're very interested in what we're doing. We've already partnered with Argonne Laboratories and looking at IoT, right? In terms of maybe getting some DOE funding to help kind of deploy sensor technologies throughout here. And not just to stay at a regional, but we've also partnered with, as you know, Bob Bennett in Kansas City.
Absolutely.
Stephen Elkins in Austin, Texas, and then those other municipal leaders down in Atlanta and New York City. So trying to set that foundation and that partnership where we can share those best practices and come together. And as you know, we come together on a quite routine basis as part of the Smart Cities Council. And the next one that's coming up in DC, right, in the beginning of October, and then also down in Tampa, in Florida, towards the end of October. So just keeping that connection and building that ecosystem with those different partners.
Is there any real project that you have that's just burning that you say, we can't wait till we get started on, that you have underway, or right now, or you've been working on all these and we've talked about them?
We've been working on a lot of projects, but the one that I'm
it.
looking forward to seeing happen in the next couple of weeks are the kiosks throughout the city.
It sounds like that's a good one.
I've been talking about that. Now that it's on camera, we got
there you go. Now you can't do it, right?
We can't back away now.
Well, it sounds like you're excited about it. What now? What's the feedback been from the citizens themselves, the businesses, about what you've been doing?
And the reality is this is kind of all new to Aurora. And these smart cities are new to our region. I think people will love the idea of having easy access, and making our community user friendly. So we've been getting a very warm welcome with the ideas that we've been having up to this point. But again, it's so new, and people don't know what a kiosk is. I didn't know what it was, until I visited Kansas City, and met with the mayor there and other smart city folks there to talk about where Aurora could be. And we're not trying to recreate the wheel here. We're taking best practice and ideas from all communities and bringing it right here home to Aurora. And if we compile all these best practices and put them here in our city, I'm telling you, we're going to be a leader.
Figuring out what's the right ones that fit for your community.
Absolutely.
And make it happen.
Absolutely.
Well, Mayor Irvin, Michael Pegues, thank you so much for spending time with us today. We really enjoyed learning about how you're making the city of Aurora a smart city.
Oh, absolutely.
All right,
having you here.
And there you have it. That's someone you should know. Recently, I had the opportunity to sit down with Michael Pegues, the CIO of the City of Aurora, at the Connected Cities USA conference. He was appointed as the CIO for the city in June of 2017, and we chatted about how to modernize the IT and the infrastructure in the city and how to monetize the assets the city has. Let's take a look at some of what he had to say.
Try to break these things down in kind of like bite-sized chunks, right? So I think from a organizational perspective, looking at the people, right? Looking at the different processes and policies, looking at the different products and services, and looking at some of the different partners that the city uses to kind of like to achieve those goals and provide value to the city and its constituents, right? The major objective, or I should say the critical success factor that I was looking at when I came in to the city was to have a consolidated IT, a consolidated budget, and direct reporting to the mayor. So to set myself up for success.
The city is currently going through an IT strategic planning process. One of the challenges that Pegues ran into is trying to budget 1 year at a time. And now he is looking at having a multi-year strategic plan. We talk about how he determines which services are best and how to minimize manual processes to save costs.
Taking that approach and trying to understand where we're at today and where we want to be tomorrow and what's in between, right? And trying to understand that, what are those different specifics, and trying to understand, the gap and analyze that so we could say, what, we have these 20, 30 different services, right? But, these 10 are required, right? To deliver a specific basic service. These other 10 are not necessary, so why don't we just eliminate those and gain some cost savings, right? And maybe there's other, 10 that are duplicate, right? And we can eliminate those as well. And looking at, what are the things we can improve, right? So one of the big things that I've noticed coming into this role is we have a lot of paper-based processes, right? So whether
manual processes are cumbersome.
Absolutely, right? And they're very time-consuming. They're very ineffective. They're not very efficient, and they cost a lot of money, right? So what are the services that the citizens need to do their day-to-day work, and what adds value to them? Can we put up some service that are on the cloud? Can we gain some efficiencies of scale working with different counties in the region, right? Where can we, look to see where we can gain some synergies in terms of services, right? And the good thing is the mayor has that mindset as well, right? So one example, we're looking at different services that the county provides, right? And we're saying, we're providing a similar service. Well, why don't we just combine that, gain the synergies, just make one office, eliminate, those extra headcount, and not just eliminate in terms of, eliminating people's job, but let's kind of refocus those individuals to, other areas where they can be more effective.
He explains to me that the IT department is there to serve as an enabler, and while identifying how to make the different city departments' jobs better, and how to get things done on a day-to-day basis, and how to save taxpayers' money. We also explore how the IT department is acting as the glue that holds all the different city departments together.
I consider myself as an active CIO who I engage my stakeholders. I want to make it inclusive in terms of, I'm not here trying to kind of dictate what's going on. I'm trying to get the input from you so I can say, what, here's some options, right? And if one of those options work, let's explore it. Let's run a proof of concept. Let's run a pilot, right? So it's about engaging those stakeholders, and the way we do that is setting up different committees, right? There always has to be some type of governance framework, right? But it doesn't have to be just that. It can just be, passive engagement, just picking up the phone. You have an idea, calling the individuals. A lot of times people get so caught up in, we're going to set up a meeting every month, we're going to come back, and we're going to talk about this. And a lot of times it goes nowhere, right? But if you're actively engaged and you're passionate about what you're doing, you can make things happen even without that. The structure is good, don't get me wrong, but it also takes commitment and, it's a bit of give and take on both sides, right? At the end of the day, we have to always remember we're doing this for the city and our constituents, right? Because we're being paid by the taxpayers.
The results are pretty impressive too. Pegues started in his role a little over a year ago, and at the end of 2017, the IT division in the City of Aurora was able to save $2.3 million. We'll certainly keep an eye on this city to see how these IT changes play out in the future. That's an innovation in tech. The City of Aurora, Illinois sits in 4 different counties. One of those counties is Kane County. Today I'm joined by Roger Fahnestock, CIO of Kane County. Roger, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So let's talk about some of the projects and plans that you have in work for, that are in the works, I should say, for Kane County right now.
So we have basically 3 major initiatives in the county right now. going on. One of the initiatives is the expansion of our fiber network with the City of Aurora. So we've been putting in fiber utility with the city throughout the county. We have about 60 miles of dark fiber that's in the right-of-way along with the traffic systems. And what we managed to do with that fiber network is pull that into commercial data centers so that the county and cities and even the school districts and other organizations can have access to data center infrastructure and better services, cloud services, and regionally they can get access to the metro area in Chicago. So that fiber project's been expanding. We've been putting a lot of effort and money into that. Along with that, we're migrating the county's private cloud and data center into a commercial center in West Chicago and also another data center in Aurora. So the county itself is getting out of the data center business. We're going to commercially provided data centers. And along with that, we're taking our shared services approach and the people that we host on our private cloud into those commercial data centers with us. So that's one of the major initiatives that we have going on right now. Second initiative that we have going on has been with cybersecurity. Security has always been a major concern for government. Lately, it's been kind of a heightened concern. So we've created a new role of a security officer for the county, and we've been going through some cybersecurity initiatives and taking those forward with especially the criminal justice side of it, dealing with our law enforcement, sheriff's office, and courts, trying to get compliant with the state police and other requirements, but also looking at our internet security and some of the things that go on with our election department. So we handle the elections for Kane County as well. And as everybody knows, there's all of the cybersecurity talk about what happened with the last election. So that's a big concern. Our last frontier has been getting mobile-ready applications for the constituents or for the public. So we spent a lot of time working on mobile-ready applications and responsive applications. A lot of that has to do with how do you interact and get services or permits or birth certificates, records, pay your bills, pay your taxes, those types of things with government. So those are really the three major initiatives that we have going on.
So let's kind of chip away at those a little bit. Let's first talk about the cloud services, because right now that's kind of a big undertaking. How's that process been working that you guys are making those shifts and kind of looking at that? Because I think a lot of people talk about how much do they want to go to the cloud, they don't want to go to the cloud. You know, has your citizens, you know, the businesses happy to be working in that environment and saying that they think that's a good thing for the county to be doing? What's the feedback been?
So we do have some challenges. I would say on the law enforcement and court side, they still want to have the direct oversight and direct access to systems and services. They really don't want to see their data moving out anywhere outside of their office. I think that's been one of our big problems or concerns. But what we've managed to do is do a tiered approach. So what we do is we take the systems and services that we have to maintain enterprise infrastructure for. We maintain those in the cloud and we migrate them to a co-location center where we own the hardware and we're managing the data. And then we're identifying all of the secondary systems or support systems or environments that we can move off to commercial cloud. So we're looking at virtual hosting services where they'll host our servers and environments for us. We have a lot of applications and data that is generally public information. So we're able to move those pretty easily into a commercial hosted solution. The one thing that we did notice is that by moving to a commercial data center or to a cloud provider co-location is the cost savings that we've experienced. I mean, for
what
us
kind of numbers? What kind of numbers are you talking about in savings?
We probably spend just in electricity about $20,000 a year to run our data centers. And right now, the contracts for our data center co-location space run about $25,000 a year for them to do the co-location space at the data center that one of the data centers that we're in. So for our electric bill, we can essentially co-locate in a commercial center, and I don't have to maintain the batteries, the generators. I don't have to maintain air conditioning systems, and I don't have to have an operations manager to run that. So we did a return on investment. We determined it was about 1.5 years for us to get our money back out of that. And then we would probably be saving somewhere in the neighborhood of $20,000 to $30,000 a year by not managing our own data center.
But then let's talk about the security side, because now I think if I understood you correctly, you're acting like a CISO, right? So if you're kind of doing some of that security side, you've got some concerns about the bad actors out there, because there's a lot of nefarious characters. If you're taking on that role, do you think that you're adding extra pressure? Because you've had to, then I would assume, bring on new employees, because you don't need some in that area, but you need other employees now who have the right abilities to protect all the information in the roles that you're serving.
So the security officer that we've basically created that role, and we've hired a security officer to work on security initiatives that we have, and that was something that was pretty much mandated by the courts anyway. And then obviously the savings that we saw from eliminating the operations manager was, not 100% savings, because we migrated some of those positions to other areas. But I think the $20,000, $30,000 savings, it was pretty accurate. We're seeing that. Obviously there's a lot of factors involved. The security side of it, we've always had a pretty strong security posture to begin with. And I think a lot of that is to credit a lot of our IT staff and technical people. But I think, you're going to see security continue to expand, the role of it and the money that's going into it. There's a state commitment that's going on right now with the federal government for Cyber Navigator, and they're basically pumping in a bunch of money for computer security, internet security, that's going to be related to the upcoming election. And you're going to see more about that in the state of Illinois, the state and the State Board of Elections, and it's going to trickle down into the counties and the cities. There's going to be a large infusion, I think, of money to deal with computer security in the near future.
So do you think right now that there's been this big move, that it's been a game changer for what you're doing from a government perspective and technology overall?
Absolutely. We've had to change our mindset quite a bit about, what we want to have in our building, under our control, under our, direct access. A lot of things being removed from your physical, site or physical touch. So you're managing them differently. You're managing them in someone else's data center. So it changes how you manage. You have to manage remotely. You have to manage everything a little bit smarter in the cloud. We virtualize 100% of our server and data environment. We don't run, the old traditional servers. Everything's virtualized in the cloud, and we run it from a pane of glass. And it's been working. We have a really good team that's matured with us over about 10, 12 years.
So what's the biggest challenges you'd say you've had to overcome right now, from a county perspective? Because you're working with different municipalities and things making it work. What's the biggest challenge overall?
Honestly, the biggest challenge that we see right now in government is employees and hiring. Government, competes in a space with private business, and people are really critical to competing and working in this IT world that you have. And government, and especially in the time, post-recession, now that we're out of the recession and the economy in Chicagoland's picking up, there's a lot of demand for IT professionals. And I think government's going to struggle trying to get the right talent to continue to move some of these initiatives forward. Cloud computing and some of the infrastructure projects that we have, it's very difficult to get the right talent.
Looking at it right now, have you feel like you guys have made the right move? You're going in the right direction overall?
Yeah, I think we're moving in the right direction. We've managed to get all of our county enterprise systems, on supported, maintained platforms. We don't have any of the legacy platforms out there, and I think that's been one of the drivers to get municipal and township and schools and education on our network and sharing our services and sharing our platform with us. We do a lot of work with the local municipalities for ERP and financials. So
we talked about the mobile apps. You've been able to get apps and things like that done. So there's all of those things that you talked about are really coming together.
Yeah. We've put up a new mobile responsive website and a new e-payment solution so that people can go online to a single site that's mobile friendly, and they can go and look up their property taxes, pay their property taxes, look up their court information, tickets, court fees, fines.
Is that something that's also helped in the construction industry with getting permitting and things like that for those folks as well?
Yes, we're working with our development department to put permits online. We have a portal out there now where they can pay for the permit and they can go out and request copies. We're working to make that a little more interactive, but yeah, it's all up and online for the people that are developing property. And for Kane County, we're seeing a lot of growth in that area. So I think that's going to continue to drive the demand for mobile and field ready applications for these people. They don't want to come into the office.
I have to tell you, Roger Fahnestock, CIO of Kane County, thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate it.
Great. Thank you very much for having me.
All right. Well, there you have it. That's our Innovation in Tech for today. Businesses need to move at the speed of light. Having the right network in a smart city is critical. Here to chat with me all about that today is Keith Gerald, Executive Director of OnLight Aurora. Keith, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So let's talk about it. You know, right before the show, you and I were sitting down and we were talking about all the things that are happening. I'm really interested in talking a little bit more about what is OnLight Aurora, and help us introduce that to our viewers right now so they understand what you guys are doing and how you're helping the city of Aurora.
Okay, so
Aurora,
great.
Illinois, so anybody who doesn't know that.
Absolutely. Aurora, Illinois, which is the second largest city in the state of Illinois. So I always want to point that out.
It's exciting when you say that. They like to hear that too.
Second largest city with over 200,000 residents. So OnLight Aurora is a 501c3, so we're a non-for-profit, but we also have a for-profit arm. And what we do is we have the exclusive right by the City of Aurora to sell our fiber network to the city. So we have a number of strands off of the city's network that we can market to the businesses and institutions in Aurora.
So what does it actually mean when people are watching and they're trying to understand, when we talk with construction companies and they're always interested about what that means, putting fiber in, people think about wireless or whatever. How important is fiber into businesses and homes today when we think about getting speeds and feeds? And I always say that that's important because when you're talking about what kind of information you want, data, things like that today, when we're connecting so many devices, so much information, why is fiber playing such an important role?
Well, fiber is the best way to deliver large amounts of data, move large amounts of data. And what I try to understand, because a lot of people think OnLight Aurora is an ISP, Internet Service Provider, and actually that's just part of what we do. The key thing is we provide a large highway that runs around Aurora, and then one of the key things that differentiates our network is we go into 2 data centers that sit in Aurora. We go into Cyrus 1 data center, which they just took over for the CME. So the Chicago Mercantile Exchange originally built that data center, and now they've expanded it about another 500,000 square feet. And then there's another data center on the east side of town, Bike Grid. That data center was originally built by CNA Financial, and Bike Grid took over that in 2013.
Why would you need data centers anymore? We're talking about everything going into the cloud. We're saying data centers,
well,
we still need those,
okay,
really?
Yeah, you need data centers because that's where the cloud resides, you know? I always say the data center is the sky if you got the cloud.
So how did you get into this? I mean, it's kind of interesting when we think about all of this information, and we know we've got to have something to be able to talk about where you put this information, whether you go to the cloud, whether you go to the edge, and that's what we always are teaching people about this. And now we have this big discussion about net neutrality, and I know you're going to talk about that. But why is this so important right now, today, in a city like Aurora? Why is that becoming so critical?
Well, first of all, when you look at fiber is now considered the 4th utility Okay, so it's a major utility. Most businesses, most people cannot survive without having access to the internet. You know, you go
Oh my
for
goodness,
jobs.
you're right. Everybody freaks out. If the internet goes down, the
Internet
world
goes
just
down.
come to an end.
Correct. So it's almost, it is the fourth utility. And the question becomes, how do you move a large amounts of data? We're doubling the amounts of data that we produce every day. Look at the camera. We can take 1 million pictures. And where do you put all that? You put it, store it somewhere. It has to go into the cloud, or you have to move it somewhere. You got to move it off your camera and move it somewhere. And the only way you can do that is with a network that can move large amounts of data, and that's what the fiber does. So we create the City of Aurora built their network in 2008, and the reason they built it is because they had a high cost to connect all the city buildings within the city was costing them $450,000 a month from a major carrier. Okay, so they decided instead of continuing paying the $450,000 a month, they said, hey, can we construct a network and put it together with all our buildings? And they did that. So in 2008, they finished, I think it was 2009, they finished the construction of the network. And then 2 or 3 years later, there were a number of citizens that said, hey, you got this big fiber network. Would it make sense for it to be able to go to the businesses? And then OnLight was formed. So there was a couple of key business owners within the city, and there was the initial mayor and one of the aldermen were on the initial task force, and they started OnLight Aurora in 2012.
So you're really talking about putting together the benefit of what we say is those public-private partnerships that you've really proven there in Aurora why public-private partnerships are so important. You just demonstrated that in Aurora.
Correct. You could say that we're a public-private partnership, but I would say that the city put up a number of money and they gave us some opportunity. We do pay back the city for use of their fiber network based on the customers that we get on. But I think the key to the public-private partnerships are going to be in the future because, again, we're looking right now, we only service businesses. We're looking to service residential. We're looking for a public-private partnership to do that. And
on your own, though. I mean, the concept of it is much different. I mean, what a public-private partnership is totally different. I mean, but the idea that things can be formed for that. So I think what those are, though, is in order for businesses to succeed, you have to have investments. You have to have outside companies coming in order to do that, right? I mean, that's not necessarily
Absolutely.
what you guys are doing. I mean, in order for communities to survive, there's got to be outside investors doing things, and that's really what a public-private partnership is all about.
Absolutely. You got to, because municipalities typically do not have the expertise. So that's what you're looking for from the outside in a public-private partnership. You know, so they're going to be companies, and the key is to finding that right key partner. And that's kind of where the phase that we're in right now. We're looking at a couple of partners for different type of projects that we want to do. But we think because we have the data centers there, because we have our partnership with Kane County Fiber, that we can do a lot in this region and be a regional leader.
Talking about that right now, Aurora is stepping out a little bit, is saying that they want to be a technology hub. They want to show that they're not a small community, that it's a specialized community doing some really amazing things. Would you say that that's right, being there, that you can actually do that with fiber and all the other things that are happening?
Absolutely. And I want to emphasize again, the key that makes our fiber different is because we have the data centers there. Because from those data centers, we can go to different hubs. For instance, we're going down to 350 Cermak, which is one of the largest data centers in the world. And at that point, we can connect to every major telecommunications company in the world. The China, the Australia telecoms, they're all built into that data center down there. And that's a key to bringing economic development to Aurora, because now someone can bring their regional marketing center, or we actually bid on Amazon for the second headquarters because we thought we had a great infrastructure. That was the key.
Is that important for businesses like construction companies and other companies who are looking to grow to say, look, this is where you can do things. This is where communities can come and do a lot more. And this is why when you're thinking about that, you can do things faster, bigger, easier here.
Absolutely. One of the companies that we brought to Aurora 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, was Aldi. Aldi's based in Batavia, Illinois, and they moved their technology center to Aurora because of our network. We made a gig building. They were able to build a mini data center in there, and now they house over 300 technology workers. It wouldn't have happened without the fiber.
Talk about, you guys are really big, you have a very strong opinion on net neutrality, and I know that's probably not something typically we would talk about here on Construct Tech TV, okay. But I find it's interesting only because I think it's educating our viewers on understanding the importance of net neutrality because it impacts them. How do you guys see that a little bit?
Well, I have a background in telecommunications, so I have my thoughts on net neutrality, and obviously, the whole key is I want a wide open net. I don't want to pay to go to certain parts of the net. The net was originally supposed to be free and for everybody to go where they want. I think that what net neutrality did was it kept the key larger players because, number one, they're large because they were built off of the original AT&T. You look at Verizon, you look at AT&T, it's all the 7 bells that happened after the breakup of AT&T. So a lot of their infrastructure was done on the original telephone network. So now, if they had built it, then they want to do it, but they have an advantage over a lot of the carriers. That's why the Telecommunications Act of 1996 came into play, and you had CLECs out there. But as you see, a lot of those companies are going away because it was a very a commoditized product that they offer in the local and the long distance. I remember I used to sell local and long distance what's the differentiator? There really is none. And when you look at the internet now, it's the same thing. What they're trying to do is make a profit off of going to the different companies.
I mean, making a profit in this world? Who wants to make a profit? I mean, nobody wants to make a profit.
But I think when you start off with something, I think it's wrong to now say, hey, now you got to pay for it.
And I think what we're looking at right now, we have an industry right now that's trying to grow to what? And I think that's what we're looking at. Communication companies, there's a lot of players, and I think what you're trying to say is we have to look at how do we grow? How do companies, how do businesses, how do residents afford all these things? And you want to make it an open playing field so everybody
Absolutely.
can get in there, right?
Well, there's a digital divide right now. I mean, when you look at companies that come in, for instance, right here in Aurora, one of the things that we're doing, as I said, is we're looking for a partner for the residential. But we're not going to let a company come in and pick and choose where they want to go, because they will pick the more influential neighborhoods to put the infrastructure, and then other neighborhoods get left behind. And we're not doing that. If they come in, they got to look at all of Aurora. And they have our fiber network to do that. So that's what we're going to look for, the right partners, but all of Aurora has to prosper from this network.
Well, we're going to be talking to the mayor, and we're going to hear what the mayor has to say, too, because it sounds like what's going on in Aurora is interesting times, and it's a growing time. And that's exciting to see what a city is doing in the bigger city of things right now and continuing to wanting to be a technology hub. So I want to thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
All right, well, Keith Gerald, he's the executive director of OnLight Aurora, and thank you so much for being with us.
Appreciate your time.
All right, that's Learn It for today. Today's word of the day is aesthetics. The dictionary defines it as being pleasing in appearance or attractive. Now, there's been a lot of talk lately about the aesthetics of our infrastructure and our smart cities. Now, we're seeing some really beautiful structures being built today. The National Institute of Building Sciences addresses this in its whole building design guide. And it says that the opportunities of architecture were originally summarized by the ancient Roman architect Vitruvius, who said buildings should provide commodity, firmness, and delight. Now, commodity represents the spatial and functional utility of a building. Firmness addresses the structure's ability to resist natural forces, and delight relates to the sensory pleasures that a building can provide. Simply, we're talking aesthetics. Today, the style of a building can represent many different meanings. For instance, a glass building can represent transparency. A tall building demonstrates power. And we see that complex and unique structures can be possible with advancing technologies and business processes. BIM and integrated design processes provide the information needed to help build more aesthetically pleasing structures. However, as I see it, we can only talk about aesthetics when we're also talking about modernization. Beautiful structures are great, but smart, beautiful structures are even better. We need to include everything Vitruvius is suggesting. A building needs to be functional, stable, and aesthetically pleasing. Today, I think this means something different than it did in ancient days. Today, we're talking about the need to include technology, sensors in bridges or infrastructure, advances that can help ensure that it is firm and can withstand the elements. Many technologies are also essential to the function of a facility today. Think building automation systems, security systems, lighting controls, and so much more. Yes, aesthetics are important, but we're also having a failing infrastructure, and we need to be talking about how to modernize. We need to consider sustainability, urbanization, adapting to mankind, and even social science. I'm guessing all of those ancient Roman architects just might agree with me. Who knew? Aesthetics. That's your word of the day. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for watching Construct Tech TV, where we're talking tech at the job site.